So this is for a project that was recorded at the volume stage at Disney on the Disney lot where they shoot The Mandalorian. Uh, and it's a short film, beautifully made by a dear friend of mine and longtime collaborator. So what you're gonna hear is the finale. I can't say too much about the film. I can't show it, but I can tell you that you'll hear this. It's a fantasy.
Mhm. Oh,
Um,
is it not released yet, or
no, it's just got into a few big film festivals in California. It's premiering next month, and then potentially we'll see what happens with it after. But we just wrapped it a couple months ago. The challenge of this is there are two themes. There's
mm,
one for the woman. There's one for the boy. Again, I can't say too much about it.
yeah.
He has to make a decision about his about a proposition that means eternity,
Mm,
whether or not he's going to sacrifice himself and remain in this state for eternity, a kind of a sacrificial gesture, or
mm,
pick someone else to take his place. So it's one of those like I loved writing this cue because it's all dialogue and the music has to use the same thematic material and weave it in and out of the dialogue, if that makes sense.
mm.
So she has a theme, he has a theme. They present themselves in various forms when he's talking, when she's talking. And then at the end, when there's resolution, her theme plays as counterpoint in the cello and the horns against his theme in the winds and the strings, higher strings.
Right. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and you can see here, so like again, some of these are so involved because I use different samples.
Mm,
Like I love the French horn solo from my brass from Cinebrass, and then these bottom ones are from Spitfire.
yeah.
Um, Same with the strings. I use various string samples just to get, a fuller, more varied timbre. So
Where you
let's see if we can.
where you
Yeah.
do you get your samples from? Like I also have Spitfire for just for the because it's free from labs. But I'm I'm not sure where do you get quality samples from for your orchestrations?
Spitfire is great. I mean, yeah, you're on the right track there. I think for me, it's just from having tried out so many. You find the strings you like, you find the brass you like, you find the winds you like. So like orchestral tools, Berlin winds are amazing. That's what I use for my mock-ups. Um, Strings, I use LA scoring strings. Cinematic strings is another string library that I really rely on.
Mhm.
I have the second version of them. And then brass, Cinebrass, and Spitfire. Spitfire is really good. It's great brass sound. Really, really organic.
Probably
Um,
then from Spitfire paid libraries, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So for now, I only have the free
Oh
ones,
yes.
obviously.
Yeah. Well, until then, those are the ones you can save up for.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just my orchestral palette, I've got an organ in here too. Some of this stuff, there's like a gothic sound throughout. But yeah, man, whenever you're ready, I'll play it.
Yeah, sure. Let's get to it.
All right, so this is a very dialogue heavy piece, but you'll hear the theme represent itself and yeah, enjoy.
Yes. Can you follow it, please? Thank you.
You can see my markers up here
Yeah,
for all the scene changes.
yeah.
New theme.
Oh,
Okay, so that's a mock-up, right?
yeah,
And you can hear, right? It's very dialogue, it takes its time, and then the end is the big finale. Now, here's the orchestra, and what a difference an orchestra makes. And please tell me if you can hear this.
wow.
Okay.
amazing. It
Oh, thank you,
sounded
man.
so different from the
Yeah.
sketch and the door. Like,
Yeah,
wow.
it's like lifeless without the real players.
Yeah. And I think it was a xylophone or something like bing, bing, very high pitch in the last part. That very high pitched clicks, or I don't know how to say it, but in the DAW version, I thought like, why are these notes being played right now? It was totally out of place.
Oh,
But
interesting.
in the orchestral version now, a real with the real orchestra, it really fit. It was really good. Like, wow, it's incredible that it makes a lot of difference.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, I this is a project where I didn't spend a lot of time on the mock-up, massaging it. And
Mm.
it's a privilege because the director has such a good ear and she really trusts me that the mock-ups were kind of an approximation, you know?
What would be perfect if you could show a little bit of the DAW version, um,
Mhm.
how what notes you were playing, or the um, or how they combined with others. Like, listen to one thing solo and then how it sounds in the context, here and there. That would be great.
Sure. And are you looking for like a mock-up production or are you looking for more compositional?
Um, I don't understand the question.
Meaning like,
Sorry.
do you want to hear how like here's an example. Like I could just
Yeah.
do solo strings, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll do this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of strings.
Yes. Now, for example, here I have all these bass patches because they're different MIDI events and I like to have some runway here before entering with a new bass part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess.
So this is like one performance, I got the bass part down and then I wrote this next section here and then I
Mm.
start a new bass track. That's not a production thing. That's just a kind of functional thing. Um, and then same for the cello, but here's the cello writing I like is very divisi. So I had six cellists on the recording session. So I've got two cello parts playing simultaneously here. This is the cello part. See, it's two voices, right?
How,
Now,
how do you why do you not do like the cello um in one track, but have it spread over, it's yeah, it's
look,
seven tracks. Yeah.
yeah, no, again, that's my own process. This is not for improving the sound of the mock-up.
Hmm.
I just work really when I have an idea, I kind of just like to run with it.
Mm.
And sometimes I like separate cello tracks to try out different parts, and then I'll mute them.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So like, um, the reason I have so many cello parts here is like I liked this counter line here, but I was like maybe I can have wait maybe it doesn't have to be that. Let me mute this and let me see if I can think of a more interesting part. Ah, no, I like the old part. Sometimes I'll keep it. It's kind of just like it's like a wide creative palette for me. Now, organizationally, I would say, yeah, probably make it depends on your process. My brain works better this way. I like
Yeah.
having all these different ideas. Like
Yeah.
this here is a piece of counterpoint that I like to see as its own individual unit. This is a piece of counterpoint I like to see as its own individual unit. I'm not recommending it. This is just how I work. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but in each track, is there different kinds of cellos loaded, or is it the same
Yeah,
cello but they play different things?
I would say more often than not, I'll have two separate cellos. So I would have a cinematic strings here or Spitfire here and LA scoring strings here. For this session, because the mock-up wasn't an in the box, right? I knew I would be recording with orchestra. I just stayed with one patch.
Mm,
So it's not like my finest mock-up, but I didn't have to worry about making it sound like real strings, you know.
yeah, true.
And
That
that
makes a lot of
is
difference.
not always really helpful for a lot of people, like maybe in your situation, who are still just trying to figure out how to do mock-ups. But this is more of a mock-up to orchestra process.
Yeah. So that makes the difference between the real orchestra and what's in
Oh
the
my
door in the
God,
box.
yeah.
A
Now, if
lot
if
bigger.
if there weren't an orchestra, I would have spent a lot of time on this mock-up massaging it.
Yeah.
Uh, Same with this brass here. I don't know if the brass even sounds that good. Yeah, that's not even what I hear. Just so you can hear what the low end stuff is doing. This is cello, bass, and French horn. Very heavy. Now, one thing I
Yeah.
do want to say too, Levi, is my writing process, if I'm working with an orchestra, is that I'm going to think differently when I put it on paper, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Meaning some of the voicings I have here, and meaning some of the way I've composed or structured the chords won't be the way that that the final product on the score for the real musicians will be.
How do you do that? Or why?
The reason I do that is because one, we had to compose the score pretty quickly, right?
Mm.
We had like a matter of weeks to write it. So if mm, that's where you make a decision, I think, as a film composer, to be like, I'm going to get the mass of the orchestra sound in the mock-up. I'm going to get all the melodies out. I'm going to get it's going to be as close to what the final sound will be, so that there's nothing in the final recording that makes the director pause and say, "Oh, well, that's not actually what I signed off on," right?
Yeah.
But where the fun of orchestration comes from is that, yes, the melody's approved. Yes, the chords are approved. Yes, the instruments are approved. But now it's deciding how you're going to voice the cello and viola. Are you going to have the cello playing the fifth and the third, and then have the viola playing a divisi part of the chord too, meaning like two notes out of the chord? Or is it just going to be, so these are nuances that don't change the fundamental intention of the composition, but make it richer and more idiosyncratic for orchestra.
Mm.
Therein lies a big conversation about, are you writing for something in the box, right? Are you writing to make it sound like an orchestra, or are you writing it for orchestra? Those are two very different things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Most definitely.
Does that make sense? Like if you think,
Absolutely. Yeah.
um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's a lot of like epic orchestral trailer music
Mhm.
is not for orchestra, but it sounds orchestral. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah. Sure.
you're getting
That's
this mass of all these like incredible, well-recorded samples you're stacking on top of each other. Whereas this is a project that I'm particularly proud of because it's kind of just more about the orchestra.
yeah. I think for me it's a little hard to imagine because you're just you're drawing the notes and doing the orchestration, but not really getting the idea here if you're listening to it, how it's going to sound in the end. So for me, that would be incredibly hard, but you know
Oh,
what you're doing, you know how it's going to sound in the end. So, or you have an idea of what it's going to sound in the end, so you don't have to massage it as much as you would if you would leave it in the box.
that's exactly right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, Now, maybe that's not the most educational for you because you're trying to figure out how to get the production process down. But that is my process, at least with
yeah,
orchestra stuff. If I'm doing non-orchestral stuff, then that's a very different approach.
yeah. No, this is amazing. Like to see the project, I think this is always the most interesting part, and I think it's a different approach if you write your music like this for the orchestra. That's also part of making film music. So I think to see this is I'm very thankful that you're showing me this. So
Oh, no, I'm
thank
so
you very
pleased to
much.
show it, man. I appreciate the kind words, and you spend so much time alone with it. It's just fun to show people, you know.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Do you have like I mean in LA, do you have a music community that you're you're really um talking about music with other people?
Yes, that's a great question. And I even just met with them recently for dinner. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, some of them are directors, a lot of them are composers. Just had a great composer hang with these four composers who I meet with pretty regularly. Um, and it's just so helpful, you know. You're not only talking about the industry, which is really great when you're kind of going it alone
Yeah.
and you want other perspectives. But it's just also talking about great scores and sharing scores, looking over them together. We do a score study night. A dear friend of mine organizes them.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, look, and joining the choir is another version for me of branching out into as many music circles as possible.
Yeah. Amazing. That's important to really have your people around you. Otherwise it gets very lonely with I mean, when you work on the computer and you there's no way to share it or really talk about what you're doing. I mean, that's just depressing, no?
Yeah, no, of course, I couldn't agree more. Um, yeah, I what was I going to say to that? Do you feel like you have a community where you are?
Well, the thing is, I am taking the community to me, you know.
Yes.
I'm
Well, I
talking to
that's very
you.
cool. I love that, Levi. Seriously.
Yeah. So um I think this is the best that I'm doing for this in this regard right now because I have no idea about composers here in my region,
Mhm.
and I'm I think I don't have that much time to really go to the next city and be there a lot. It takes a lot of time, just an hour to get there and back. It's like I have to get all my hobbies and interests into the time that I have, and just talking to you and other composers via Zoom is it's a great way to really connect with people that do the same or that are also much further in their path than I am in mine. Like I'm just starting out, and so like this, I think it's great.
That's
Continue to do that.
yeah, and I think what I love is when you reached out, I'm gonna admit I was a little suspicious.
Oh, okay.
But
It's
but the reason is because it's so unusual to be approached by someone as earnest as yourself who's in a place of wanting to educate themselves and just reach out and build a community online,
Yeah.
that it's very refreshing. It really is.
Yeah. That's so fun to hear actually.
Because
Because I
you're open to learning, and you can see it that you have this kind of inquisitiveness and eagerness.
yeah. All right, so I'm I'm super happy that you actually agreed and not uh thrown me off. There's actually a lot of people, like obviously I'm texting a lot of people. Like
Mhm.
whenever I see someone on my explore page and they're doing something in music or composition. Also EDM. I love EDM.
Oh
I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
make
sure.
EDM too.
Cool. You
Um,
should.
but first off, I want to master music, movie music or epic orchestral music. Um, but the thing is, every time I see someone who makes music that's really good and I like it, then I text them, and there's so many, and oftentimes, most of the time, I don't get a reply, or
Mm.
some obviously don't even see it.
Right.
And it's always great to have when I come back after texting like 10 or 20 people and I see that one person answered me. I'm always so happy.
Well,
Yes, someone's
that's a good
interested.
response rate, actually.
Yeah. And also given that uh, at what levels they produce, like it's very interesting to see who responds and who doesn't, and but it's amazing to just have the opportunity and also like to share this in the form of a podcast. And right now I have like the first episode, honestly, it didn't get any views of the podcast yet,
But it
but
will.
to build people that or not to build people, to build a community of people that are interested in this, I think it's a privilege, and share all of this. It's amazing.
Yeah, man, you've got a great, unique attitude for the times, and by that I mean you're willing to use this as a communal tool.
Yeah, social media is there to be
Yeah,
social.
yeah, it's the first word. It's supposed to be social. No, I admire that. I admire also that you have the gumption to go out and reach out to people, no matter their status. Yeah,
And
look, I don't pretend to understand its machinations. I think there's a reason I stay off of it.
yeah.
I'm only on it for 30 minutes a day, tops.
Oh,
Um,
that's great actually. As
yeah,
long as you're there as a creator, it's all
exactly.
good. But if you are there as a consumer, not so much. It's really destroying your brain actually, and yeah,
Yeah, there's nothing you can't do as a creator in 30 minutes. 30 minutes is enough time
yeah,
to post updates, share new music, and then like you said, the rest is just noise.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to keep it. I actually don't have a choice. I get locked out, and I had my wife create a password.
That's an amazing mechanism to keep
There's
yourself in
nowhere.
check.
Yeah, my joke is that it's Odysseus and the sirens, right? He begged his
Mm.
crew, yeah, tie him to the mast. No matter what he says, no matter how much he pleads or begs, they can't untie him. So I think that's how we should all be treating our excess social media use.
Yeah, that's a good way. And also the fact that there are apps or applications in some way that you can restrict yourself, like it's
Yeah, it's
it
great.
is needed.
Yeah,
Social
there's
media,
a lot of great life to live, and I want to make sure I'm living it.
most definitely. And the fact that social media is so well engineered that you're getting hooked to it and stay with it,
Mm, yeah,
it's it's beyond our capabilities to keep ourselves in check. Like to some extent, of course, we can keep ourselves in check, and it's best to just deinstall it, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore, obviously. But if you're there, then it's so well engineered that you're going to stay longer than you have planned to, if you plan it even.
That's exactly right. It really does cast a spell.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't fault too many people for being addicted to it. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
so expertly engineered. Um, but that's where it does just take an Odysseus moment to say, enough. Like I simply need to be barred from this. Here,
Yeah.
make a passcode that I don't know, and I will be locked out. And that's what I mean for me. That's what it. Not because I'm addicted, just because I don't want it at all.
Yeah.
Um, the great joy for me is in the morning is playing piano and playing piano music.
Mhm.
And I can think of few things as antithetical to scrolling than reading piano music because it's such a focused act.
Like again, as a creator, social media is such a great tool to really reach out to people. But for me, I also have to keep uh, in check which people I reach and which people follow me, because it's not about getting 100,000 people to follow me and yay, now I'm famous and
Mhm.
everything's great. No, I need to reach the people that are interested in composition and in
Yeah.
music and in the people behind the music, because that's actually how I got the idea of making this podcast, because I'm interested in the people behind the music, because Hans Zimmer may be a legend, but he's also just a human being with a story, with a backstory, and his way, how he got into music, and how he got to the position that he is in right now. And that's for everyone, for every artist that you look up to, they have a story. And there's a saying, every time two people meet, it's two histories that meet.
Mm. Yeah,
And
that's a lovely notion.
I want to get to know the history behind the person. So that's how we got here.
Well, I want to add a quick aside on the Hans Zimmer thing too. My mom is a podcast producer and
Oh,
she produces Alec Baldwin's podcast.
so she
And
does that as a profession full time.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
she
nice.
teaches a course in New York at a college for podcasting, and she produces Hillary Clinton and Alec Baldwin's podcasts.
Well,
Um, and Alec had Hans Zimmer on.
mm,
And when you do an interview for a podcast, as I'm sure you know, right, you need to do some question prep. And my mom actually asked me to do the question prep because who better, right, than another film composer?
mm,
And so I got to sit in on the Zoom between Alec and Hans. Uh,
amazing.
and one thing I noticed, this is a wonderful thing about Hans Zimmer, which I knew, but I never saw in action. There are few people as erudite in film as Alec Baldwin, in that he's seen so many films and he has such a great encyclopedic memory of who produced it, who wrote it, who acted in it. And we're talking like across the decades, right? Hans Zimmer
Mm,
was right there with him. They were gabbing about like golden age studio films from the 50s that I'd never heard of.
mm,
So I think Hans Zimmer, to that point, is a great filmmaker, but he's a good hang, and he
yeah,
knows film. He really knows film.
right.
He knows film as any of those obsessives, any of those filmmakers he's collaborating with. And I think that that's another great thing to keep in mind, as you embark on this journey. But
But
you should listen
that's
to Alex's podcast. I think you might get a kick out of it. You should listen to the Hans Zimmer episode.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. So I have such a long list of things to listen to after this
I
one.
know, I
I
know, I
love
know.
it.
I don't want to overload you, but at the same time, I hope they're inspiring.
Yeah, I have, I mean, I have time. I can look into all of this, and especially because it's something I'm passionate about, I can even make more time for it. So that's great.
Yeah, I can tell that you've got a real obsession about it, and that's look, and to some extent, I'm kind of jealous because I remember that feeling, um, and it can be all consuming in such a good way.
Yeah.
So yeah, be obsessed with it and dig in as much as you can and have fun because I think there's so there's a lot that you could in not even a lifetime could you start to uncover all the interesting things
Oh yeah,
about music.
definitely.
Really.
Yeah.
I found this Bach piece that I know really well, but I found a version of it that's much slower last night,
Mm.
and it's all I've been thinking about since I woke up.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's like it's not film music. It's not an assignment that I'm writing. I'm just obsessed with this piece of music.
Yeah,
I
I
want to
know that
understand it on
feeling.
such a fundamental level. And I think after you and I finish, I'm gonna try playing it on the piano.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's amazing. So thank you so much that you took the time for these 3 hours. It's incredible. So that was
Hey
the
man,
longest interview so far, and I'm so thankful that you showed your composition here and really opened up so much, and also about like finance, which is a sensitive topic. So thanks so much
of
that
course,
you
Levi.
spent the time here.
Yeah, no, it was a thrill. I'm really, really happy you reached out.